Turn down the lights for a second. We're going to look at a story you probably think you already know. But tonight, we aren't reading it like some dusty high school assignment. We're looking at it for what it truly is. It's a tragedy about the terrifying lengths we go to when we just can't let go of the past. Okay, let's dive into this explainer.
What if you built your entire life just to impress someone who already moved on? I want you to really think about your own life for a second. Think about that one person from your past. Maybe it was a first love, someone you completely reinvented yourself for. You bought new clothes, you listened to new music, you curated a totally different version of yourself, hoping that if you just reached a certain level of success or some aesthetic perfection, they would look at you again. We've all chased a past version of happiness. We've all wanted to turn back the clock. But for Jay Gatsby, this wasn't just a fleeting thought in the middle of the night. It was literally his entire reason for breathing.
Section 1. Loneliness disguised as glamour. The illusion of the party.
Let's strip away the roaring 20s aesthetic for a minute. Strip away the flappers, the jazz, the glamour. Because at the center of this story is not a confident literary icon. At the center is a deeply, profoundly lonely man throwing the world's most lavish, chaotic, glittering parties, night after night, week after week. And the crazy part? He isn't throwing them for the thousands of people drinking his champagne. He's throwing them to catch the attention of exactly one woman. Daisy Buchanan. Gatsby's house was a palace, right? A beacon of light across the water. But it was essentially just a playground for absolute strangers. People arrived from the city, drank his liquor, danced on his lawns, and honestly, they never even bothered to learn his name. Our narrator, Nick Carraway, notes this perfectly. Gatsby was a ghost in his own home. He'd stand on the marble steps, completely sober, just watching the crowds, desperately hoping that out of all those hundreds of faces, Daisy's might suddenly appear. His wealth wasn't meant to be enjoyed. It was a giant, desperate distress signal disguised as a celebration.
You see, there's this invisible, uncrossable line separating East Egg and West Egg, two pieces of land staring at each other across the bay. East Egg is Daisy and her husband Tom. It's old money, inherited privilege. It's comfortable, it's careless, and it's deeply established. You don't have to prove you belong there, you simply do. Then you have West Egg. This is Gatsby. New money, flashy, a total performance of success. It's where people try to buy the class they just weren't born into. And this is the real tragedy of it all. Gatsby can buy the mansion, the hydroplane, the custom shirts, and the imported cars, but he can never ever buy the history that Daisy possesses. He's trying to win her back by building a world she would be impressed by, not realizing that her world fundamentally looks down on his.
So that brings us to Section 2, Loving an Ideal Illusion, the Tragedy of Obsession. This is where we really have to look at the psychology of Jay Gatsby. Why can't he just let her go? It's been 5 years. Daisy is married. She has a child. But to Gatsby, those 5 years are just a minor delay in his master plan, because he isn't actually in love with a living, breathing woman anymore. He's in love with an idea. He had thrown himself into it with a creative passion, decking it out with every bright feather that drifted his way. Over 5 long years, separated by war and class and time, Gatsby built up a colossal illusion of Daisy. He added to it every single night. He made her perfect. He made her holy. But you know as well as I do, no actual flawed human being can ever live up to a fantasy that's been cultivated for half a decade. When they finally reunite, Nick even notices a moment where Gatsby seems almost bewildered. The illusion was so vibrant, so massive, that reality simply couldn't compete. Daisy was bound to fall short, not because of who she was, but because of the impossible pedestal Gatsby had placed her on.
Which brings us to arguably the most brutal, shattering realization in the entire explainer. Her voice is full of money. This is the moment Gatsby finally understands the truth. Daisy's charm, the way she speaks, her undeniable magnetism, it isn't just magic. It's the sound of absolute security. It's the sound of a woman who has never, not for 1 second, had to worry about survival. Her allure is inextricably linked to the wealth and the privilege that Gatsby can mimic but never authentically possess. He realizes that to have her, he doesn't just need to be rich, he needs to be someone he fundamentally is not.
Let's move to Section 3, the impossible green light, decoding the symbols of heartbreak. We are going to strip away the dry, academic analysis here to look at the raw, visceral feelings these symbols actually represent in your own life. The green light. It sits right at the end of Daisy's dock, glowing across the dark water. For Gatsby, reaching out toward it in the middle of the night, it was everything. It was tomorrow. It was the future where everything is finally fixed. But the definition here is what really matters.
an impossible hope. The green light is the agonizing, unbridgeable distance between who you are right now and the dream you desperately, violently want. It's that haunting feeling when you're so close to the life you envisioned, you can almost physically touch it, but the current just keeps pushing you back.
And you absolutely cannot have the bright, sparkling lights of Gatsby's parties without the dark, desolate reality of the Valley of Ashes. This is the wasteland between the city and the eggs. It's literally where the ashes of the wealthy are dumped. It represents the moral decay hidden right beneath all this modern glamour. Because while Gatsby and Tom are drinking champagne and having affairs, people like George Wilson are covered in literal ash, totally crushed by the pursuit of this American illusion. It's the heavy, inescapable cost of someone else's superficial dream.
Looming over that valley of ashes, the giant, faded billboard eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg look down on a sprawling, disconnected cityscape. It's an empty, modern spirituality. God has essentially been replaced by capitalism, by a forgotten advertisement. Just connect this to your own life for a second. The profound modern loneliness, the coldness of a city where everyone is surrounded by people but somehow entirely alone. It's the sheer exhaustion of constantly performing success, constantly trying to rise above the ash, under the gaze of a society that doesn't actually care about you.
Section 4. Nostalgia as emotional addiction. Loving memories more than reality.
This right here is where the story stops being about 1922 and starts being about human nature. Nostalgia is a liar. It edits out all the bad parts. It makes the colors so much brighter than they actually were. And for Gatsby, loving the memory of Daisy became a dangerous, all-consuming emotional addiction. Nick says it best. He wanted to recover something, some idea of himself perhaps. This is the hidden truth of the whole story. Gatsby wasn't just trying to resurrect his relationship with a girl. He was addicted to the ghost of his own past self. He wanted to go back to who he was when he first loved her, back when he still had his innocence, before the war, before the bootlegging, before the corruption. He was chasing the feeling of his own untapped potential. Daisy was just the vessel for that feeling.
And that is the true tragedy here. It isn't losing the girl. It's losing yourself in the pursuit. We do this today, don't we? Think about modern social media culture. We're all, in a way, playing the part of Jay Gatsby. We curate a perfect aesthetic. We post the highlights, the vacations, the perfect outfits. We throw a digital party, hoping a very specific person views our story. We perform our success to an audience that is mindlessly scrolling, often not even really looking. We lose the core of who we are in the desperate pursuit of being perceived as successful and loved.
Which brings us to our final act. Section 5. Chasing who we once were. The haunting truth of careless people.
The narrative comes to its inevitable, tragic conclusion. We have to look at this impartially. We have to look at who survives this story and who doesn't. Because the dreamers, the ones who care way too much, like Gatsby, they perish. But the old money elite, they endure. Nick summarizes Tom and Daisy with a chilling neutrality. They were careless people. They smashed up things and creatures. They retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness, and they just let other people clean up the mess. When tragedy strikes, when people literally die, Tom and Daisy simply pack their bags and leave. They have the ultimate privilege, the privilege of consequence-free living. They're totally insulated by their wealth. Meanwhile, Gatsby, who risked everything for a single burning dream, ends up floating dead in his own pool, completely abandoned by everyone who drank his wine.
And it leaves us with this final, immortal thought. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. We fight the current. We reach for the green light, because sometimes we're not really chasing a person at all. We are chasing the version of ourselves that once felt alive. Thank you for joining me for this late-night confession. If you want to dive deeper into the emotional truths hidden inside the literature we thought we knew, check out the other explainers on this channel. Until next time, keep looking for the light.